So I'm a huge fan of the Spanish Netflix series La Casa de Papel, or Money Heist. Now, when Netflix announced that they were going to be doing a remake of that hit show, but having it based in Korea, I was curious at how they'd pull it off. But I was also looking forward to checking it out. Money Heist Korea Joint Economic Area is now streaming, but should you be watching? A genius strategist and people with different personalities and abilities attempt to pull off a heist where North and South Korea store their unified currency. So if you've seen the original Money Heist show, this utilizes all the same players, but obviously with different actors since this is a Korean series. The plan is basically the same as season 1, where the collected group of thieves set out to rob the mint where money is printed. Now this has an interesting twist because it's incorporating the Joint Economic Area in Korea, which is a place that resides in the middle of North and South Korea as sort of a common ground where people can work, shop, and even live. And they have a unified currency, which is what draws the professor to the mint and his plan to steal just this huge amount of money. I like the actors, and there are some minor changes in the story, but the most difficult thing for me in this was that I'm rewatching something I'm already familiar with. So I'm just kind of waiting for certain sequences to happen. It's like reading a book after you've already seen the movie. You know what's going to happen and where all of the exciting parts are. So you kind of impatiently continue to read until you arrive at those parts. This version has many of the same scenarios as the original, but sometimes they're executed just a bit differently. And take, for example, when the professor has to go to a junkyard where a vehicle that he used is housed. In the original, there was some incredible tension as the police are closing in on him and he's trapped in between vehicles. And all the while, some dog is kind of closing in. In this one, we have a lot of those same items, but not totally. And unfortunately, there's not as much suspense that's built up. And I don't think in this case that it's a matter of knowing the outcome. I mean, the execution itself lacked the buildup that then led to extreme tension. This first part of this season is 6 episodes, and I think they rush a lot of the character moments and development, despite each episode being around an hour in length. Now, I was struggling to really connect to the team. They retain some of the same personality qualities, and they can be likable, but they felt more like strangers to me. And that's coming from somebody who's seen the original and is very familiar with the characters. Now, one thing for me that I found troubling also is that the professor doesn't come across as very cunning or intelligent. I mean, sure, he's got a plan, but a lot of his actions don't seem like they're part of his plan. Like he wasn't anticipating all of these possibilities. We also don't get as much of the awesome intellectual banter that comes from the professor. And I know I'm kind of being a bit unfair because I'm sort of using the original as a measuring stick. But when you do a remake, especially so close to when the original series aired, it's nearly impossible not to compare the two. And even though it sounds like I'm being pretty down on this version, there are some portions that I really enjoyed. The action is exciting and a lot of the camera work is immersive and it helps to put us right into the situations. And you can feel some of the tension as the interactions between the thieves and the hostages ramp up, especially when those hostages don't totally comply with all the directives. I'm also impressed at how the show is able to create another utterly despicable character with the mint director. He's whiny, arrogant, rash, and self-serving. And from the outset, we don't like him. And I love that consistency because it's great to have a villain inside the mint who makes things worse for everyone. Now, I struggled to get through this because so much of it is rinse and repeat. And I'm not opposed to a remake necessarily, but it could have been a better proposition to create a different scenario for the group. I mean, even if the characters were the same. Overall, Money Heist Korea Joint Economic Area is an uninspired copy of the original Money Heist. While there are some changes to certain events, the show as a whole is a rushed version that lacks the emotional depth and character development to create compelling circumstances. The professor comes across more as an unclever lead than a crafty tactician, but on the plus side, there are some exciting action sequences and some of the camera work allows for engaging scenarios. Now, because this is only part 1 of season 1, maybe it's going to pick up more as the show goes along. But I think it's still a pretty big gamble to release half a season of a remake of a popular show so soon after the original concluded. There's sex, some brief nudity, a bunch of profanity, and a lot of violence. I give part 1 of season 1 of Money Heist Korea Joint Economic Area 2.5 out of 5 couches. So if you've been excited to check this one out, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the remake in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.